Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Dam and you are watching Flick Connection, the show that helps you get more out of movies, and today I'm going to tell you about 20 amazing gangster movies you can currently watch on Netflix. This is without a doubt my personal favorite genre, and I've been wanting to do a video like this for a very long time, but only just recently did Netflix have enough good gangster movies for me to do a list like this. And during this video, I'm also going to show you how to make mob boss sauce. That is Italian marinara sauce, just like a mob boss would make, just like they make in Goodfellas and The Godfather.
Oh, that's the flavor.
Now, as I said, number 20 is the weakest, and Deadly Code is certainly that. It stars John Malkovich as a Russian mob boss, and this movie actually has a lot of promise. There's a lot of really great scenes, a lot of great story elements in this one, but it's ultimately kind of a messy movie, meaning it's not really that great of a movie. So for this one, all the way at the back, I would reserve this one for people who are just avid fans of the genre. If you love gangster movies, you're going to be able to overlook the many flaws in this movie and really just enjoy and appreciate the flavor of it. If you're not just a lover of the genre and you want to watch some really good movies, don't worry, I got plenty coming up. Another one that kind of fits into the same recommendation is The Outsider with Jared Leto. Now, this happens to be a Netflix original, and it is a beautiful movie. It's actually a fairly well put together movie. The only problem I had with this one is there's not a whole lot that happens. Jared Leto plays a white man who is eventually initiated into the Yakuza, and this is a fairly slow-paced movie. Really, I would reserve this one more for people who like the aesthetic of it and want to spend 2 hours in the world of the Yakuza. This is just sort of a plotless story, if you will, which is great. There's some great plotless stories on this list. It is a beautiful movie, and if you are into the aesthetic at all, you're going to at least enjoy that aspect of it. And, you know, not a great one, but I feel like it fits squarely at number 19. Another one involving the Yakuza that is arguably a worse movie, but that is much more enjoyable, is Darc, spelled D-A-R-C. This one has a lot of action. This one's kind of a mix between The Outsider and John Wick. Yet it's just sort of sloppy. It's a low-budget movie. Yet if you like John Wick and you like the Yakuza thing, you can have fun with this one. This one's much more violent than the other two that I mentioned, and they have their moments. But this is almost an action movie. There's a lot of fighting going on in this one. Fairly well choreographed fighting, yet it looks like it's shot on a low budget. This is a great little revenge thriller though, but don't expect great performances, don't expect high production value. If you can overlook those things, I think you'll enjoy it as much as I did. I should have mentioned that my first 3 picks feature a lot of subtitles. They are all mixed language, so they're not full subtitles, but you are going to have to read. My number 17 pick is the first one that does not have subtitles, and that's Brooklyn's Finest. Now, this one I had really high hopes for when it came out because it is a street-level crime movie directed by Antoine Fuqua, whose first movie was Training Day. Now, he is an incredible director, and this is a great movie. I think this movie suffers from maybe having a little bit too many cooks in the kitchen. There's a little bit too much going on, and that's because it stars Ethan Hawke, Richard Gere, Wesley Snipes, Don Cheadle, and they're all great in it. It's just almost as if it's really 2 movies happening at the same time. I'm not really a fan of that format, and this one just suffers from the same symptoms that those movies often do, but you get this crime element, there's an undercover element, there's Richard Gere as an aging cop element, there's a dirty cop element. Again, too many elements, yet I like all of the ingredients in this soup. My number 16 pick also comes from one of my favorite directors, and that's Miami Vice. This is directed by Michael Mann, who also did Heat. Now, Heat would have been featured on this list, but Netflix just dropped it. Miami Vice is arguably a more beautiful movie. It looks stunning from beginning to end. However, It's not as tight as Heat. Very few crime movies are, however. But again, this one had a few too many things going on, yet I still love watching this one. I think the characters are great. I think the performances are great. And the cinematography and the locations are absolutely incredible. You do get some good crime action that occurs, even though it's a little bit few and far between. But again, just a beautiful aesthetic. And because I love the gangster genre so much and the crime genre, the cop genre, this one's another one, just a great way to spend, just a great place, rather, to spend that time. My number 15 pick is a foreign language movie from Spain called Toro. Now this one is really great. Now keep in mind, I've got this one above a Michael Mann movie on this list. It is that good. It's about a low-level guy who gets caught up in the beginning of the movie. He sort of gets captured, goes to prison, and is on the straight and narrow. And then this is all like the first maybe 10 minutes of the movie. And then something happens and he's thrust back into not just a life of crime, like a 24-hour day of crime where he has to complete some tasks. Now, I don't want to say too much more than that because I will get into spoiler territory, but this one as well. Very beautiful cinematography, very great sort of edgy characters, interesting scenarios in this one. I really enjoyed it for that reason. It's a great little hidden gem that I know a lot of people have missed because it's foreign language. It's one of the few that I have on this list, and I highly recommend checking it out regardless of the fact that you have to read subtitles the whole time. Now this video is the second time my viewers have ever seen me in a tie. The first time was when I was reviewing The Highwaymen. You can watch that full review. There's a link in the description, but it's the latest Netflix original and it's pretty good. I liked it a lot actually. I am partial to the subject matter as I've said, but it stars Kevin Costner and Woody Harrelson hunting down, they play ex-Rangers that are hunting down Bonnie and Clyde, and it's a really great telling of that story and a good way to see the other side of the story. So if you like The Highwaymen and you've never seen Bonnie and Clyde, well, you have an opportunity to do that as well.
We rob banks.
Indeed, they do rob banks. Bonnie and Clyde was just added following the release of The Highwaymen, and I recommend watching both of these movies together. If you can do a double feature, good for you. It's been a long time since I've been able to do that, but maybe in the same weekend or in the same week. They really do complement each other. I don't really have a recommendation on order. Bonnie and Clyde is the better film. It has better editing. It has stronger filmmaking features. However, The Highwaymen's great. But Bonnie and Clyde is a classic for a reason. It's an older movie. It's from the 60s. If you, for some reason, don't like to watch older movies, this is one that you will probably enjoy. It does have slow moments and slow pacing at times, but there is some action in this one and some great sequences, including what was at the time the most violent sequence ever on film in a movie theater. So this movie is a classic for that reason as well, and it's another reason to watch it if you consider yourself a movie buff at all. Liam Neeson's last movie, I don't want to say it's Liam Neeson's last movie, I'm sure he'll keep doing movies despite his comments. Anyway, Liam Neeson's latest movie, Cold Pursuit, is actually a remake of a film called In Order of Disappearance, and it is great. It's been on Netflix for a while. It's foreign language. It's from Scandinavia, and it's really, really good. There's a reason they remade it. My understanding is that the Liam Neeson version is essentially a almost shot-for-shot remake. There's not a lot of changes in it. I would watch the original. It's got a quirky vibe to it, yet it is dark at times. I mean, there's some blood on the snow, but it's about a guy who clears the ice roads, and his son is killed, and he goes on a rampage after the guys who did it. And these guys are obviously big time, gangsters. And so he's up against, a formidable enemy, and it plays out really well. Like it's not, you do have to suspend disbelief at times, but it's a fairly believable story about a guy who just doesn't care anymore. And I've seen that before. It's kind of a death wish type of a thing, yet it's different. It's got its own vibe, its own flavor, and I enjoyed every bit of it. And then for my last pick in the bottom half of the list, before we get on to making that sauce, Once Upon a Time in America is one of Sergio Leone's last movies. It's one of his only great non-Western movies. It takes place in New York, stars James Woods, Robert De Niro. They're gangsters, they're badass, they're bank robbers. Some of them, they might be a little too badass at times. It's a very, very epic and long movie. It is Sergio Leone. It's slow at times, but if you are a gangster fan, you are going to dig this movie. You've probably seen it. It's an absolute classic and just a masterpiece of cinema. There's the reason I have it here in the bottom half of the list, though, is because of those slow periods. It's kind of a grueling watch and not for everybody. And that makes it not the greatest recommendation on this list. However, it's one of the greatest movies on this list. So like I said, let's make this sauce. Now, for this mob boss sauce, you want to take out an onion. Then you want to whack some garlic. No need to use a razor blade and be all delicate. Paulie was a pussy and everybody fucking knows it. Then you sweat him out. Then you want to dismember some meat, and you want to get cheap cuts with fat and tissue. You don't want anything real premium because we're going to totally ruin this meat. And you want to rub them down with olive oil and then roast them till they brown. Crack open 2 cans of peeled plum tomatoes. Work them over real good with your hands in the pot. By now, your meat should look like this in the pot. Leave it for 3 to 4 hours, stirring it occasionally. Come back, take the meat out, add sugar, add wine, parsley, parm. Simmer, and it's key to taste it with bread. Do not taste this on a spoon. You're going to be eating it on pasta. It's not going to taste right on a spoon. Adjust it, might need a little bit of salt, might need a tad more salt and pepper. Serve and then stuff your face. And if you like content like this, definitely click that subscribe button and be sure to click the little bell icon so you get notified when I put out new videos just like this one.
And I'll dip my nuts in marinara sauce just so the fat bastards can get a taste of home while they're at it. Fuck it. I'm doing it. It is.
Speaking of marinara sauce, Boondock Saints is my number 10 pick on the list. This one is a lot of fun. It's not nearly as good of a movie as a few of the ones that I just mentioned, yet it's much more enjoyable to watch. It's much more entertaining for scenes like the one I just showed you. And it is totally about taking down the mob. It fits perfectly on this list. I love the flavor of it. It is a movie lover's movie. It's made by a movie lover, by a guy who never directed a movie before. He wrote it in a spiral-bound notebook, sold it to a studio. It's an incredible backstory to this one. And again, just a great, fun piece of entertainment that, by all intents and purposes, should not be as popular as it is, but I love that people love to love this movie so much. Number 9, another foreign language movie that is a Netflix original, The Night Comes For Us. I've talked about this one a lot lately because it was one of my favorite movies of 2018. This one is the most intense one on the list. It's the bloodiest, it's got the most fighting. Ooh, man, and it has got some gore. This one, I will say, is a little bit slow in the first 20 minutes or so, to the point I was kind of surprised. I thought I was maybe confused about what this movie was going to be, and then once it takes off, it does not take its foot off of the gas. I'm not kidding. It keeps going and going and going. I could not believe how intense and how long the action sequences were in this movie, making it one of the best Netflix originals that they've put out so far.
The most important thing in business is honesty, integrity, hard work.
And apparently shooting people in the head is part of it too. In American Gangster, Denzel Washington plays a badass gangster. You also get Russell Crowe. Josh Brolin has a great role. This is a really great movie that it was popular when it came out. It really did well, and then time has sort of forgotten it. At least that's my perception of it. I've talked about it a couple of times recently, but it fits squarely here. It is a great gangster movie, certainly a modern day one. We don't get a lot of them anymore, and I say modern day, I mean this movie is over 10 years old, and it's still, because it's Ridley Scott, it looks like it was filmed yesterday. If you never saw it, you would have a hard time convincing yourself that this was not a new release. It's really great. Really, really incredible gangster movie. Deserves to be lumped in with some of the best gangster movies, American gangster movies of all time. Now we're going to get out of the US for a few minutes, starting with Layer Cake. This one was just added recently. It stars Daniel Craig as a drug dealer in ties with the British, the UK mob, and it's a really great gangster movie. There's a lot of familiar things going on in this one for fans of the genre, and then they sort of twist and mangle some things too and make them new and different. This one feels very fresh as well, even though it is pushing 15 years at this point in terms of how old it is. This is before Daniel Craig was James Bond, and this is directed by Matthew Vaughn, who used to be Guy Ritchie's producer. They parted ways. He went on to do this movie, and then went on to do movies like Kick-Ass and X-Men First Class. So a really great director, and this is a really fantastic first outing for him.
He flicks a flaming match into his bird's nest, and the geezer's lit up like a leaking gas pipe. Rory, unfazed, turns back to his game. His team's won too.
Speaking of Guy Ritchie, his first big movie, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, is on Netflix. I have always loved this movie. I love everything about it. I love the gritty, grimy look of it. I love the characters. I love the story's pretty wild. It's unlike any of the ones we've talked about so far. I'm not going to give you any spoilers, but it's a fun story. It keeps you engaged, and it's a guy's movie. And I will say, if you have never seen it and you don't typically watch British television or films, you may want to watch this one with the English subtitles turned on, just to break yourself in. It is really difficult to understand some of these characters if you're not used to it.
You look like a boxer.
But not even the Cockney gangsters in Snatch can understand Brad Pitt.
In the quiet words of the Virgin Mary, come again.
This is another Guy Ritchie movie. He actually did it right after Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Even though I have kind of an affinity for Lock, Stock, and maybe a little bit more, Snatch is the tighter movie. It's the better movie. It has a lot going on in it, like some of the ones I talked about at the beginning of the list, yet it works well in this one. There's a lot of different storylines that converge, and it's not a mess. It's wild, but it's not a mess. This is one of the most fun ones on this list. I cannot recommend it enough. Another really violent one, very, very similar to The Night Comes For Us, is The Raid. I happen to think The Raid 2 is one of the best action movies of this century. However, The Raid is not as good, but it's pretty damn good. This one is about a SWAT team raiding a building full of gangsters, and it is a shoot-'em-up fight movie that just does not stop. Once it gets started, once they get into the building, they have to work their way up. Similar to the movie Dread, if you enjoyed that one, there's plenty to love with this one. The great thing about The Raid and The Raid 2 is the action, and The Night Comes For Us for that matter, is the action is unlike anything you've ever seen. The way the fighting is choreographed is almost over the top and just crazy, and the scenarios that the protagonists get themselves into in terms of how many enemies they're facing and how they're facing off with them and how real the punches feel and all of that stuff is really, honestly, unlike anything else. If that sounds like you and you have not seen The Raid, I don't give a shit what your opinion is about subtitles. Watch this movie and don't even read the subtitles. It's that good. You're going to enjoy every minute of it. A movie that has been near the top of the IMDb Top 100 for over a decade now is City of God. This one takes place in Rio and is about the drug trade, and it is brutal. It's a brutal telling of it. It starts off with people as their kids, how they get sort of like pulled into the drug trade as kids, and then they mature. So you get like this coming of age story amid this crime background. It's beautifully shot, heartbreakingly told, and just it's almost Shakespearean in the nature of the way the story unfolds. Really deserves to be as highly respected as it is, and really ultimately is probably the best movie on this list. It's just not quite my favorite.
Now, you got a corpse in a car, minus a head in a garage.
And we've got my number 2 pick, Pulp Fiction. Everybody loves Pulp Fiction. It's so fun for so many reasons. Even if you don't, I feel like even if you don't like Quentin Tarantino that much, you have to still kind of love at least parts of Pulp Fiction. The dialogue is so incredible and fun. Reservoir Dogs was really about gangsters and the way that they might actually talk in real life, like the way they talk about the tipping and the way they talk around the lunch table. And then Pulp Fiction took that and just amplified it and put similar characters in crazy situations, in a bunch of crazy situations. And it's all the better for it. It, to me, is the better movie. As much as I love Quentin Tarantino, I really think Pulp Fiction might be his masterpiece. I don't know if he's ever going to top it. You may have one that you like better, but Pulp Fiction really is an incredible piece of filmmaking, which is why it's at number 2. Then why are you saying, why is it not at number 1? That's because The Departed is currently on Netflix. Now, is The Departed the greatest gangster movie of all time?
Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe fuck yourself.
Well, I would say no. I would say Goodfellas is not only the greatest gangster movie of all time, it's my favorite and possibly the greatest movie ever made. However, The Departed is damn close in that it's very similar to Goodfellas, and it does one thing better. It's paced out better than any movie I've ever seen. If it's been a while since you've seen it, go back and watch it. It does not stop. It keeps going and going, and there's no lull in it at any one point. It's edited in a way that is so expedited, yet it doesn't feel rushed. It's just a beautiful piece of filmmaking in terms of how it's composed from beginning to end. That's why I love this one so much. And it's fun. It doesn't forget to be entertaining. There's really great one-liners and just fun scenes in it, on top of some really dramatic and incredible scenes as well. Again, Goodfellas is my favorite, but man, did I love this movie when it came out, and I can sit and watch it and enjoy every minute of it. Which movies off of this list are you going to watch? Let me know in the comments below, but I will keep making videos just like this one as long as you keep watching them. Thanks for checking this one out, and you will see me on the next one. If you'd like to support the show, you can do so a number of ways. You can become a Patreon supporter like one of these fine people. You can follow the Amazon link in the description if you're going to be buying Blu-rays and DVDs anyway. Follow that link. I'll get a little kickback, and it won't cost you anything. You can check out the Teespring store. I designed all of the shirts in there myself. You can also like, comment, subscribe, share. Don't forget, you can share it with anybody that you think might like this video. It would really help me out a lot. But again, I really appreciate the views, and we'll see each other again on the next one.